She smirked at me like she already knew the ending. And before I could pull away, she whispered, "Be honest, you like this game, don't you?" That was the moment I realized I was already losing and I didn't even want to win. I met her on an evening that didn't feel like it was supposed to matter. The cafe was nearly empty, just the low hum of soft jazz and the scent of roasted beans settling in the warm air. I was staring at my laptop, pretending to work, when she walked in with the kind of presence that didn't need attention, yet owned every inch of space she touched. Confident, composed, beautiful in a way that came from certainty, not performance. She ordered her drink, glanced around, and chose the seat directly across from me, despite the entire room being free. Not beside me, not far away, directly in my line of vision. Our eyes met for half a second, and I looked away first. I wish I could say I didn't, but I did. The first move was silence. She didn't try to speak. She simply existed in my proximity with a kind of ease that forced me to feel my own nervous heartbeat. Every time I lifted my eyes, hers were waiting, calm, amused, patient, like she was watching me solve a puzzle she had already completed. Eventually she stood, walked over to the counter, and returned with 2 cups instead of 1. Without asking, without hesitation, she set the extra cup on my table. "Try it," she said. "You look like someone who sticks to the same routine. Let's break it." That was her first line to me. Not hello. Not "is this seat taken?" A challenge. Her voice was warm, low, steady. A voice that didn't beg to be heard. It expected to be. Before I could reply, she sat down next to me, not across anymore. Close. Too close for strangers. I felt the warmth of her sleeve brush mine. My body went rigid. She noticed. She smiled slowly. Not wide. Not friendly. A smirk. The kind that says, "I know exactly what I'm doing to you." We talked, I think. I can barely remember what I said, or if my responses made sense. She, on the other hand, was effortlessly present. Every word she spoke felt intentional, balanced between playful and probing. She asked things most people ease into. Who's let you down? What keeps you up at night? What do you really want? Not what you pretend to want. Her questions felt like fingertips tapping directly on my guard. Then, as she leaned over to hand me the cup again, her fingers grazed the back of my hand. A soft touch, barely there, but unmistakably deliberate. My pulse jumped. Her eyes flicked to my reaction, and that smirk returned, slow, satisfied. I realized it then. She wasn't flirting. She was studying me, testing me, playing with the space between us just to see how I would handle it. That was the first moment I understood something dangerous and magnetic. She wasn't in my world. I was stepping into hers. After that night, it became a rhythm I couldn't explain and couldn't resist. I found myself returning to the cafe, not because I needed the space, but because some quiet part of me hoped she'd be there again. And she was. Not every day, but often enough that it never felt like coincidence. She'd look up from whatever she was reading, give me that small, knowing smile, and suddenly the entire room felt narrowed down to just the 2 of us. We began sharing a table like it was the most natural thing in the world. She never asked, and I never questioned it. The distance between us shrank, not with grand gestures, but with subtle choices. She would lean in when she spoke, not out of necessity, but intention. She listened with her eyes, not just her ears. And every time her sleeve brushed my arm, it was like my body noticed before my mind did. Our conversations were playful at first. Dry humor, sarcastic jabs, small teases about my predictable habits. But beneath her teasing, there was always something sharper, something observant. She noticed everything. The way I tapped my thumb when I was thinking. The way I avoided eye contact when a question got too personal. The way I inhaled a little too slowly when she sat too close. One evening, rain drummed against the windows and the cafe lights felt softer, warmer, almost private. She sat across from me at first, scrolling through her phone. Then, without a word, she moved to my side of the bench, shoulder to shoulder, close enough that I could feel the heat of her body through my shirt. I froze for a second, and she glanced at me with raised eyebrows. "Nervous?" she asked. "No, primelit." She smiled like she could see the truth sitting in my throat. She rested her elbow on the table, turning her body toward me. Our knees brushed, just barely, and she didn't move away. I felt the contact like a live wire. My breath slipped out unevenly, and she heard it. She always heard everything. What struck me most about her was the contrast. She could laugh lightly one moment and pierce straight through me the next. She would ask playful questions like, "So, who's texting you at night?" and follow it up quietly with, "Do you ever feel misunderstood?" She stretched the space between flirtation and vulnerability until I didn't know which one I was standing in. I found myself answering her more honestly than I intended, surprised by how easily she disarmed me. She shared fragments of herself, too. Never the full picture, just glimpses. A reference to a heartbreak. A joke about men her age being terrified of depth. A sigh she didn't mean to let slip. The rain outside intensified, and she whispered something so soft I almost missed it. "You think too much. Just feel for once." Her knee pressed fully against mine, then, steady, intentional, unblinking. I looked at her, really looked, and I understood she was drawing a line and daring me to cross it. And I didn't know whether to step forward or run. The shift didn't happen loudly. There was no dramatic moment, no confession, no accidental slip of emotion. It came on a quiet night when the cafe was about to close and neither of us wanted to leave. The rain from the previous evening had carried into this one, and the sound of it tapping against the windows made everything feel softer, almost suspended in time. She sat beside me like always, her body angled toward mine, her perfume warm and familiar now. We were close enough that our shoulders touched each time we both inhaled. But tonight, she wasn't teasing. She didn't smirk or raise a challenging eyebrow. Instead, she traced the rim of her cup with her fingertip, eyes unfocused, as if her thoughts were somewhere she rarely allowed herself to visit. "You ever feel like you're always the strong one?" she asked quietly. "No plafelton, no vati trap." An honest question, real enough to disarm me. I nodded, surprised. More than I admit. She swallowed, looking away for a moment. It gets exhausting, carrying yourself like nothing gets to you. People believe the mask so much, they stop checking if you're actually okay. For the first time, her voice trembled just slightly. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough for me to feel it. I didn't speak. I just listened. And it was in that silence that she finally exhaled and leaned back against the sofa, her shoulder resting fully against mine, not by accident this time. "You're easy to talk to," she murmured. "I hate that." "Why?" She smiled, but it wasn't her game smile. This one was smaller, sadder, because it makes me want to say things I shouldn't. There was that thin, fragile line she hid behind. The truth beneath all her jokes and tests and smirks. She wasn't playing to hurt me or to amuse herself. She was guarding something. And the game? It was her armor. I turned slightly toward her. "You can say anything. You know that." She met my eyes then, really met them. No filter, no mask. Just a woman who had learned to survive without leaning on anyone. "You don't know me," she whispered. "Not really. People see what I let them see. You're different. You notice things, and that makes you dangerous to me." The room felt warmer suddenly. Smaller, like the world had folded just to fit this moment. Without thinking, I shifted closer, and she didn't pull away. Her head lowered until it rested lightly on my shoulder, her hair brushing my jaw. I felt her breathe, slow, controlled, like she was fighting the urge to unravel. My hand hovered for a second before I gently placed it on hers. She didn't tease. She didn't smirk. She simply interlocked her fingers with mine, slowly, like she was memorizing how it felt. For a few long minutes, we just stayed there, breathing, touching, saying nothing. Then, too suddenly, she pulled her hand back. The softness vanished. The wall returned. She stood and grabbed her coat. "Good night," she said, voice steady again. "Don't read too much into it." And she walked out, leaving me with one truth I couldn't ignore. Something between us had changed, and she was terrified of it. The next few days felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. I still went to the cafe. I still ordered the same drink. The same music played. The same chair waited. But she didn't come. Not on the first day. Not on the second. By the third, I realized I wasn't there for coffee anymore. I was waiting for her, for that familiar teasing glance, that effortless confidence, that quiet gravity she carried like a second skin. When she finally appeared on the fourth evening, something in her was different, colder, controlled. She saw me, of course she did, but instead of walking over, she sat at a table across the room. Alone, distant, and for the first time, I was the one staring. I approached her, unsure, and she looked up with a polite smile. Not her smirk, not her playful curl of the lip. A polite smile, the kind you give strangers. "You disappeared," I said quietly. "I got busy," she replied, eyes already drifting back to her phone. That was a lie, and we both knew it. I sat across from her anyway, and for a few minutes, we pretended everything was normal. Small talk, weather, work, empty words with too much silence between them. The warmth from before was gone, replaced with this uneasy distance that neither of us addressed. Finally, I couldn't take it. "What are you doing?" I asked. Her eyes lifted, the real eyes, the sharp ones she used when she was about to push someone away. "Being smart," she said. "We crossed a line we shouldn't have." "That line was yours," I whispered. She laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "Exactly, and I know where it leads." "You don't." I leaned forward. "Then tell me." She stood instead, picking up her cup. "There's nothing to tell." When she tried to walk past me, I reached gently for her wrist, not to hold her back, just to stop the moment from slipping away. She froze, and for a second, I felt her pulse beneath my fingers. Fast, unsteady, betraying everything her voice tried to hide. "Look at me," I said. Slowly she did. And there was again fear, longing, and something even deeper she didn't want to name. "Why are you running from this?" I asked. She stepped closer, so close that her breath brushed my cheek. Her voice dropped, barely above a whisper. "Because I know myself. I know what happens when I care. And trust me, you don't want to be on the other side of that." I swallowed. "You don't get to decide that for me." She smirked then, but this one wasn't playful. It was defensive, a shield. "Be honest," she murmured. "You like this game, don't you?" My chest tightened, not from her words, but from the pain behind them. She leaned in, lips inches from mine, close enough to make my pulse stumble, yet far enough to keep me starving for more. Then she pulled back and walked away, leaving me with no kiss, no touch, no answers. Just the echo of her voice and a truth I could no longer escape. She wasn't avoiding me. She was terrified of herself. I didn't see her the next day, or the one after that, but something in me had shifted. I wasn't content to wait in silence anymore, not after seeing the truth behind her eyes. So on the third night, instead of going to the cafe, I went to her. I knew where she spent her late evenings, an old, quiet lounge attached to an art gallery. She once mentioned it casually, saying it was the only place she could breathe without performing. When I walked in, she was there, alone at a corner table, a glass in her hand, city lights spilling through the tall windows behind her. She looked peaceful and exhausted at the same time, like someone who had been fighting a war no one else could see. She noticed me, and for a moment, she didn't put her mask on. No es Smirked, no tease, just a flicker of vulnerability before her walls scrambled back into place. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I sat down across from her. "You know why I'm here." She looked away. "You should have let it go." "No," I said softly, "because you're lying to yourself. And to me." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't run. "Not this time." I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. "You think this is a game?" "I don't. Not anymore. And I'm done pretending I don't feel something every time you look at me." Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, searching, defensive, but trembling just beneath the surface. I continued before she could push me away. "You pull me close, then you disappear. You open up, then you shut every door. You say I don't know you, but you won't even let me try. So tell me what you want, honestly, not what keeps you safe." She set her glass down, her fingers trembling just slightly. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin and tired. "You don't understand what you're asking for." "Then help me understand," I said. For the first time, she didn't dodge. She didn't joke. She didn't deflect. She just looked at me, really looked, and I saw the weight she carried in silence. "I've been the strong one my whole life," she whispered. "The one who never slips. The one who never needs. And I don't know how to let someone in without fearing they'll leave when they see the mess behind the confidence." Her voice cracked on the last word. Without thinking, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull back. Our fingers interlocked slowly, deliberately, not as a tease, but as a choice. "You don't have to be strong with me," I said. "Not here. Not now." Her eyes softened, and all the fight seemed to drain out of her shoulders. She leaned in, resting her forehead against mine. "No game. No musk. Just breath and closeness." "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know," I whispered. "But we don't have to rush. Just don't push me away." She nodded, and her thumb brushed gently against my hand. A small motion, but the most honest touch she had ever given me. That night, for the first time, she didn't walk away. After that night, everything between us moved differently. Not fast, not impulsively, but with a quiet intention neither of us dared to name out loud. We didn't instantly become a couple, and nothing dramatic was announced or defined. Instead, the change lived in the small things. The way she greeted me with softer eyes. The way my voice steadied when I spoke to her. The way silence between us stopped feeling like a battlefield and started feeling like a place to rest. We began meeting outside the cafe and the lounge. Late evening walks, quiet bookstores, hidden corners of the city where no one expected anything from either of us. She chose calmer spaces, places that matched who she was beneath her armor. Reflective, thoughtful, tender in ways she didn't let the world see. One afternoon, we sat on a bench overlooking the water, the wind carrying tiny ripples across the surface like moving glass. She pulled her coat tighter and leaned just a little closer, not touching yet, but closing the space in a way that felt deliberate. "You're quieter today," I said. "I don't have to perform with you," she replied, almost shyly. "It's strange, but nice." We talked about nothing and everything, favorite memories, regrets, wishes we never said out loud before. There was no teasing edge now, no defensiveness riding under her words. Just honesty, slow and blooming. At one point, a loose strand of her hair blew across her face. Without thinking, I reached up and brushed it gently behind her ear. She froze, not in fear, but in surprise. Her eyes closed for a heartbeat, and I felt her exhale. "That's the first time," she murmured. "The first time what?" "The first time her touch didn't scare me." She leaned her head against my shoulder then, her weight settling like she trusted the space she took up. I wrapped an arm around her, not possessive, not urgent, just present. She rested there, letting herself be held, and I felt something shift deep inside her. Not a wall breaking, but a door unlocking. Later, as dusk painted the sky in gold and violet, she whispered, "If we do this, I need slow. I need patience. I can't be rushed into something I'm still learning to believe I deserve." "You set the pace," I told her. "I'll match it." Her fingers searched for mine, and when she found my hand, she laced her fingers through it with a quiet certainty. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. That moment was more intimate than any kiss could have been. As we walked back through the evening streets, hand in hand, she didn't let go until the very last corner. Then she stopped, looked at me. No walls, no mask, no smirk, and said softly, "I want to try. With you." But gently. And for the first time, the future didn't feel like a risk between us. It felt like a choice we were both willing to make. The next morning arrives quietly, without the jittery confusion of the night before. The storm has passed, both outside and between us. Sunlight filters through her living room curtains, resting gently on the wooden floor where we sat for hours just talking. There is no smirk on her lips today, no playful battle of power, no teasing words meant to provoke a reaction. Instead, she looks peaceful, almost tender. I stand by the balcony, letting the early breeze cool my thoughts when I hear her footsteps behind me. Slow, measured, not cautious, intentional. When she stops on my shoulder, I don't turn right away. I feel her presence first, the way her quiet breath brushes my arm. "Hey," she says softly, her voice carrying none of last night's tension. "You didn't run." I glance at her, and for the first time, she looks unsure. This woman who toyed with my reactions, who controlled every beat of our rhythm, now waits for my answer. I wasn't playing to begin with, I tell her, and I wasn't going to walk away just because it scared me. Her eyes drop to the floor. Not in guilt, just honesty. "I push people," she admits, folding her arms, not as a shield, but as someone uncomfortable with vulnerability. "It's easier to test them than trust them. You kept showing up, and I didn't know how to handle that." I take a step closer, closing the physical and emotional distance at the same time. "Then don't handle me," I say gently. "Just choose me, without the games." She exhales, a long, unguarded breath. When she looks up, her gaze is so open it almost hurts. "All right," she whispers. "No more games." She reaches for my hand this time. Not to provoke, not to control, not to test. Her fingers intertwine with mine, steady and warm. There is a softness in her touch, a softness that feels far more intimate than any smirk or challenge ever did. We sit together on the couch, shoulders touching, the simplicity of closeness replacing everything complicated that came before. For a long time, there is no need to fill the silence. Her head eventually rests against my shoulder, and I feel her hand lightly circle my thumb. A small, absent gesture, but meaningful. It's her way of saying she wants me there. It's my way of staying. Finally, she breaks the quiet. Not with a tease, not with a dare, but with the truth. "You were right," she murmurs. "It stopped being a game for me a long time ago. I was just afraid to say it first." I tilt my head against hers. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." A calm, lasting warmth settles between us. Not thrilling, not sharp, not dangerous, just real. The kind of closeness that doesn't need rules or wins or smirks. This isn't a game anymore, and neither of us wants it to be.